You're drinking no drinks, so you're never drunk. You're taking no drugs, you're not a punk. You're putting your nose in everything that's in your way, yes, you're just the saint. Oh, Timmy, I'm most awfully sorry. The Lancia Delta, also known as the Chrysler Delta in UK and Ireland. It's got an Italian badge and an American badge. They only sold 800 of them in the UK. But should you care? Well, let's find out. Lancia, andiamo!
With our shortcomings, it's not as if we don't have to wipe away the tears. From time to time we wouldn't lie, but there's a promise for our broken lives, and dawn breaks on our horizons, and we will not be disappointed when we get out of this place. So I'm not disappointed now. We will not be disappointed.
So, welcome once again to Surrey and this 2011 Chrysler Delta 1.4 SR Multiair. Thank you very much again to my friend Lorraine, who's lent us this wonderful car for review. So thanks, Lorraine. Lorraine. Right, what can I tell you about the Chrysler Delta, or the Lancia Delta as it's known in most countries? Well, it was first launched all the way back in 1979, and it went into its third generation form. This is a third generation car in 2009. It was only sold as a Chrysler in the UK and Ireland for 2 years, between 2011 and 2013. This is a late 2011 car. We think it was probably a demonstrator, and they only sold 800 of these on the UK market during those 2 years of sale. So the Lancia Delta is quite a famous name, particularly in the world of rallying, and the later versions of the first generation that was sold all the way up till 1994 were known as the Delta Integrale, which generally stands for four-wheel drive. This is front-wheel drive, of course, as are most Deltas. But it's quite an illustrious name to live up to. But this doesn't really feel as sporty as that. It's only got about 140 horsepower from a 1.4 litre turbo engine, but it's fast enough. The other petrol engine available in the third generation Lancia Delta or Chrysler Delta was also a 1.4 turbo that developed 120 horsepower. That's not called a Multiair, it's called the T-Jet. The Multiair technology is something that's probably a little bit boring to a lot of people, but essentially it gives you better economy and more power, as most of these systems do. And it's got plenty of low down torque, and if you rev it nice and hard like this, it also makes a nice noise. Of course, like many other cars of this type, there were also some diesels available, but naturally I can't tell you about those. So how does this car compare with its American badged stablemate, the Chevrolet Cruze? Now, they were available at the same time on the UK market, and they were direct rivals. The Chevy was a bit cheaper than this, but nevertheless they were available in showrooms for you to buy about the same time. Well, this is a lot more comfortable, much more comfortable. Mr. Franks has been commenting on that during our time with this car. And also, the engines are a lot better. This 1.4 turbo has a lot more power, it's very smooth, and there's no kind of sense that this is going to get really bad economy. I think you'd obviously get 40 to 45 miles per gallon, and try getting that in any Chevrolet Cruze petrol and it'd be impossible. I'm quite surprised actually this car how nice the gear change is. The clutch is light. It's actually very nice to drive. I wouldn't call it sporty, but it certainly has enough pace. And with this sort of nature of being a luxury brand, as Lancia always kind of was, it's very nice to kind of waft along, particularly in a car like this, which has cruise control. So there were 4 trim levels available on the UK market. There was S, which is the base model. There was SE. There was SR, which this one is, and there was Limited, which is a very common trim level for top of the range Chryslers. This one has dual zone climate control, cruise control, part leather seats, parking sensors, front LED lights. It's actually got quite a lot of equipment, and the Blue and Me system for hooking a phone up is quite handy, although I'm with iPhones. It actually feels a bit more kind of like an Alfa Romeo, which is strange because the Alfa Romeo Giulietta was based on the same platform as this car. Interesting. The other car that was based on this platform was the Fiat Bravo. Now, I know Fiat don't have the best reputation in Britain for reliability, and the Fiat Bravo wasn't that interesting a car, but this to me is very interesting and handsome design. I think really that it's a shame Chrysler or Lancia or whoever doesn't sell cars on the UK market anymore. So one of the things that might be interesting for people to know is that Fiat and Chrysler are the same company, and they have been since about 2008. I drove a Chrysler Sebring in 2009, but it was an American-made car, and it had all the interior quality of one of those plastic trays inside a pack of Boaster biscuits. So for those of you who don't know, or perhaps, you know, aren't interested, but anyway, I'll tell you, Fiat and Chrysler are the same company and have been for about 10 years. I drove a Chrysler Sebring, which was an American-made Chrysler, back in 2007. 2009. It was a 2007 model, and that had all the interior quality of a pack of Boaster biscuits. You know, little trays you get inside one of those. And yes, Mr. Franks, Boaster biscuits. The Chrysler Sebring really wasn't the nicest thing to drive either. I mean, the steering was vague, given a speech about Brexit. The engine which you got was thirstier than a group of ERG politicians on a knees up, and it had all the residual value of a pen from Poundland. I'm happy to say that this Chrysler Delta has nothing in common with that Sebring at all, and it's all the better for it, in my opinion. Now, talking about Fiat Group interior quality, and saying it's better than something is a rare thing, but honestly it is, and it's not too far off something like an Astra, I would say, although I don't think it's as nice as a Volkswagen Golf, that's for sure. So overall, this car is actually quite a surprise. I'm really impressed with the way it drives. The quality is much better than I was expecting, and for a car that's done 50,000 miles and is 8 years old, it's held up remarkably well. So thanks again, Lorraine. Lorraine. This car is really starting to surprise me. I don't normally like Fiat Group products, but this is a really comfortable and a really nice drive. Let's see if the boot had any surprise in store as well. So the boot in this car is quite interesting. There's some really good things about it and some really bad things. What's good is that if you push these seats forward, and they actually slide, by the way, there's 465 litres of boot space. Even with them sort of back as they are now, there's still 380, and that's much bigger than the contemporary rivals this car had, like the Golf and the Focus. What's not so good is this enormous lip between the boot floor and the sill. That's not going to be good for your back. So if we lift up the boot carpet, we find that there's no spare wheel in here, which really annoys me. There's also no hooks in here for hanging anything at all, which really annoys me. Although you do get this nice luggage net, and as I said, the boot is of a really big size, particularly if you slide forward those rear seats. In fact, Let's go and sit in them now. If you take a seat in the back of this car, the first impression you're met with is one of real luxury. These seats are really comfortable, and as I said, they slide forward and back. They even recline slightly, but I can't believe it for that. Oh, here we go. There we go. Recline back by 25 degrees. So, loads of space to get comfortable. Got masses of headroom, loads of leg room. Reference, I'm 5'11". This is my driving position. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. It's like sitting in a very expensive Italian lounge in the back of this car. You've got this armrest here that comes as standard on this, which is an SR model. It's got a couple of cup holders, although those do feel a bit flimsy. Got these nice chrome door handles. The trim doesn't feel too bad, although that's not soft touch plastic. Overall, I quite like the back of this car. There's no USB ports or anything like that in the back, but when this car was launched in 2011, you wouldn't have expected anything like that. So this car is really comfortable in the back and it's really luxurious. But what about the front? Let's see. So if we take a seat here, well, the answer to the question is yes, it's really nice. The seats are very comfortable. The top model of this came with full leather trim. This SR is part leather trim. The dashboard's got soft touch plastic. The wheel feels comfortable to hold. You can see what Chrysler or Lancia were actually aiming for with the market position of this car. So let's look at the glove box as usual to see if it's big enough for the secret mission documents. Maybe. Depends how many papers you're carrying across the border, I suppose. Well, the window switches are in the right place and they feel reasonably good. These are obviously Fiat parts, but maybe they're not so bad. These indicator stalks, though, oh my gosh, the wiper stalk, indicator stalk, they are worse than on a 2008 Peugeot 207, and that is bad. What also takes away from this overall air of luxury and sophistication is this horrible centre console. This kind of silver effect looks like something of a mini disc player from the mid-1990s. These buttons feel really, really difficult to press, and it is generally not something I'd ever wish to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. One of the interesting things about this car is it represents a time when we were transitioning over to, integrated systems for phone connectivity in cars. So we've got the Microsoft Blue and Me logo here. We've got a Microsoft Windows logo on the steering wheel. Now, if you're a Microsoft fan, that's great. But for a lot of people, like Mr. Franks, who likes Apple things, I'm sure he wouldn't want to drive around in a car that advertises a rival system. So the dials, they look reasonably good. They're very clear. The central display in the instrument cluster, though, is a bit low resolution, but that's par for the course of something of this era. The gear shift feels nice. Handbrake lever looks a little bit cheap. That's probably out of the Fiat Bravo. And it's got some horrible fake leather stitching on it for reasons best known to Fiat, Chrysler, or whoever's making them this week. So visibility in this car, the rear's not great actually. You definitely want to go for a model with parking sensors. I don't think a reversing camera is available on any model of the Delta. The front is okay. The pillar's a little bit thick, but the windscreen's quite large. It is quite raked. Overall, it doesn't feel too claustrophobic in here because the headliner is a light colour, but I wouldn't say this is the airiest car in the world. One of the interesting things about Fiat Group products is that they often have a city mode for the power steering. Now, it's just this button here and it feels horrible like a lot of the buttons do in the centre console, but if you're in town or something, it's quite handy, although it removes all the feel from the steering if you use it, and the steering of this car is not heavy anyway, so, I mean, if you're an Italian lady and you're driving around Milan, possibly that might be something you'd use, but for other people, I think I'd avoid pressing that. So then, what do I think of the Lancia Delta? Or in this instance, the Chrysler Delta? Well, it's a very stylish car. It's very comfortable. And it's much better to drive than you'd imagine. Sure, it doesn't have any of the pedigree of the Lancia Delta Integrale from the 1980s, and good luck trying to find one of these. But it's a shame that Chrysler pulled out of the UK market, because if they kept going, who knows what could have happened. Oh dear me, I'm so sorry. Good afternoon. Can I interest you in living? Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd. I'm an independent vehicle consultant. I find cars for people. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to do that. Don't forget to like this video and to leave a comment below. If you wish me to source a car for you, I'd love to do that. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Please use the Contact Me page on my website to get in touch. I've got a Facebook page as well. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you. But can you find one? That's up to you. What happened? What's wrong?
I'm sorry.
Did you corpse? You corpsed on me. Actually corpsed on me.
What do you mean?